The recent local elections have dealt a significant blow to the Conservative government, losing almost 100 seats and more. Now, meanwhile, the Labour Party has seen success in key areas, including Sadiq Khan's third term as London's mayor. Joining us to discuss these election results as well as its implications is Mr. Andrew Tettenborn, law professor at Swansea University. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Good morning. So, can you tell us what do the results of these recent local elections indicate about the current political climate in UK?
Well, on one level, it's obvious it is the worst result that the Conservative Party has had for over 40 years, and it is obviously very good news for the opposition Labour Party in Britain. I think it means that if you wanted to put down 10 zlotys on a Conservative victory at the next general election, you would get odds that would make you a very rich man indeed. Having said that, there are, I think, a number of other comments which it's worth making. Despite the fact that Labour gained control of a very large number of municipalities, you have to note that this was an election with a very low turnout. A very low proportion of the number of people entitled to vote actually did so. And the other thing, which may not be obvious to a number of people in Poland, just as we in Britain are not particularly aware of how, say, Donald Tusk is viewed in Poland, is that it is not a question of the Labour Party being popular. No one particularly likes the Labour Party. They simply dislike the Conservative Party and what they see as its incompetence in government. What you will notice is the very good performance by other parties other than the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, which may indicate cracks in what has been essentially a two-party system in Britain for many years.
All right, that is something rare to see. Like you mentioned, this is the worst result for the Conservative Party in 2 scores. And we do see Labour, however, being able to flip some of the strongholds that usually belong to the Conservative Party. Does that have any implications, or do you think, like you mentioned earlier, it's a lack of voter enthusiasm for the Conservative Party?
I think it is a lack of enthusiasm rather than any positive enthusiasm for Labour. Well, there are 2 things that are worth noting. One is that we now have in Britain another party, which again may have flown a little under the radar in Warsaw, which represents a different strand of conservatism called the Reform Party, which has taken a very large number of votes of people who are congenitally conservative. The other, rather more frightening, is the growth of the Islamist vote. A rather worrying number of council seats went to outright Islamists who complained that the Labour Party had not been doing enough in favour of the inhabitants of Gaza. Apart from that, the Greens have done well, and in many cities, you've had local independent candidates also doing well, picking up quite a lot of votes, notably, for example, in the city of Oxford, which traditionally has been a very Labour city. So I think it may show a very considerable change in UK politics. Also, anecdotally, I think there are quite a lot of socially conservative voters who, if they thought that the Reform Party actually had a chance in the general election, would simply change to that party. Now, that, of course, would be extremely bad news for the traditional Conservative Party.
All right, you just mentioned the Muslim vote. That is a trend that is uptaking right now. So if you can help us understand how might the Labour's stance on the Israel-Gaza conflict have impacted their performance and constituencies when it comes to the Muslim population?
in quite a lot of constituencies, in areas with a high Muslim population, it has done Labour no good at all. That's why I mentioned that a number of wards actually went to people who had previously been members of the Labour Party, because Labour had a very large proportion of the Muslim vote in Britain. But there were a number of candidates who'd previously been in the Labour Party who then resigned from it because they complained that Keir Starmer, who is the leader of the Labour Party, had not been vociferous enough against Israel. And there is, unfortunately, a very strong anti-Israel vote in quite a lot of the more Islamic constituencies in Britain. That's very worrying.
Right. And some people have been painting the narrative that we see a lot of the traditional conservative strongholds losing to Labour due to, well, these places that supported Brexit strongly, and trying to draw a conclusion between the two. Do you think there's any validity to it, or is it a 2 + 2 = 8.5 situation where people are trying to draw connections?
I think it may be 2 + 2 = at least 5. Traditionally, the Conservatives have done well in the prosperous south of England. Now, Labour have been picking up votes there, but so also have another of our parties, the Liberal Democrats. When it comes to the north of England, which is where the Conservatives cleaned up in 2019, Labour has been making gains, but so also has Reform. And indeed, in one or two cases, Reform may have split the socially conservative vote in order to admit Labour. That undoubtedly happened in one municipality, the West Midlands, where the vote for Reform was much greater than the majority gained by Labour.
All right, and I would like to draw our attention to the Reform Party. Like you mentioned, maybe other parts of the world are not so familiar with it just yet. But like you mentioned, it might have split some of the conservative vote. Do you think the Conservative Party under Rishi Sunak's leadership, a lot of these kind of unpopularity can be directed towards that? Or do you think the Reform is such a strong force that it will be able to, I think, redirect some of those votes?
Well, it could, though it's very difficult in Britain to unseat a very long-standing and successful political party. It might be possible, if the Conservative Party slightly moved to the right, to take up some Reform votes. My own feeling is that the Conservative Party's best hope would be to do some sort of electoral deal with Reform. After all, you have other parties doing deals with each other to keep the Conservatives out. There is something to be said for the Conservatives giving Labour a taste of their own medicine and doing deals with Reform to keep Labour out.
All right, and of course, the general is coming up soon. And do you think that this local election could be a prelude to what's to come? Could it be foreshadowed, and can we observe some patterns here?
Well, I think we can. That's why I mentioned right at the beginning that if you wanted to put money on a Conservative win at the next general election, you'd get stratospheric odds. But I think it does show that Labour is overwhelmingly likely to win the next election. Whether it will necessarily win it by a landslide, or the kind of landslide that has been predicted, is not quite as clear. I read one figure that said that these results probably point to something like a 9% Labour lead in the general election, which might not even give Labour an overall majority. I'm not sure about that, but I think that we will see a Labour win. I'm not sure whether we will see a Conservative wipeout at the next election, but it's febrile times, and things are becoming less predictable than they were with the growth of third parties, and the decreasing popularity of both the Labour and the Conservative Party.
All right. Give me a second. Just putting in my bets and done. Now, with that being said, what about the long-term implications? How does this impact British political sphere going forward?
I suspect looking forward 20 years, we may very well see an end to the two-party system. There are quite enough challenges coming up. And obviously, we have green issues, which will take some votes. We have a much more febrile system throughout the world. And Britain, being a very cosmopolitan country, I think is likely to be affected by world events in its politics. And let's say a two-party system is not that common. Okay, it exists in some countries, it exists overwhelmingly in the United States, but it's not that common, for example, in the rest of Europe. And I think we may see a move towards a much more multilateral style of politics with much more of a need for coalitions between parties on particular issues. But that's looking forward about 20 years.
Right. And speaking of looking forward, I'm also curious about foreign policies, especially given that Rishi Sunak just promised a very big package deal to Ukraine. And some are saying that, well, what if he goes out of power? Will this be continued? In other words, will this political earthquake change the way that UK deal with the rest of the world?
I don't think so. One point that a lot of people have made is that actually it's difficult to put what used to be called a cigarette paper between many of the policies of the Labour leader and Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak is very much a grey banker, a grey, rather boring banker. Keir Starmer is a grey, rather boring lawyer. And I think in terms of foreign policies, both very much agree. They are both, I think, fairly solidly behind Israel in the Gaza conflict. And I think you will find that Keir Starmer is pretty strongly behind Ukraine.
All right. And last but not least, do you think going forward, these changes will make sure that the UK stays not so great?
That's very difficult to see. We face challenges in a much more unstable world, and that's not something I'd care to predict.
Right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thanks again for being with us on TVP World. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.